I'm convinced that the Spirit of God is very present and central in the interfaith movement, and that for us Christians, it's a constant experience of humility, of being humbled. And if we resist it, being humiliated by encountering in those of other faiths the love you spoke of a moment ago, and the desire for truth, and all of these things which back in the days before the interfaith movement arose, we wanted to say that the Christianity had a monopoly on. When you actually come into contact with people of other faiths, you can't say that anymore.
And that presents a problem for those Christians who may be watching right now who haven't arrived at that awareness yet. I mean, there are millions of Christians that have not arrived at that awareness yet.
Well, that's true. That's true, but the same applies in relation to them, that those of us who have that awareness need to be open to them and to listen to them and to affirm what is valuable in what they're saying, because they too have a point to make.
A contribution to make.
A contribution to make, yeah.
And what do you say to those Christians who only recognize Christianity as legitimate expression of faith?
I would say have the courage to do a little bit of interfaith encounter and relating and conversation. And you know, don't, when you go into this conversation with someone of another faith, don't be constantly rehearsing in your head all of the things that you're going to say to them, you know, all of the right answers, but instead listen. Listen to them.
Kind of get to know them.
Get to know them as people. Listen to them. Ask them questions. Watch their face. See the humanity in them and in what they say. Because after all, Christ is present in them and with them too, even if they don't know it yet. And if Jesus Christ is present in every human being, and this is really what we believe when we say that He became incarnate, that God became incarnate in human nature, then we can hear Jesus speaking to us even in what those of other faiths are saying to us.
So if people have never had interfaith experience as Christians, you would encourage them to get their feet wet, to experiment with it, call up a Muslim imam or a Buddhist monk and go out for coffee. How would you suggest people get started?
Well, you and I were talking about the internet before. I mean, there's plenty of stuff on the internet. Maybe that's a relatively unthreatening or painless way to
you get yourself into less trouble that way, right?
Right.
In other words, educate yourself first about what people of other faiths believe before necessarily calling someone up on the telephone and saying, let's have coffee.
Yeah.
That would probably be the best way to proceed, right?
Or one good way to proceed, anyway.
Yeah, educate yourself a little bit. So you actually have an idea of what they believe.
Mm-hmm.